Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you so much for joining us here in Living in Mexico. Of course, we're trying to anticipate, trying to predict what next year looks like. It's that time of the year. And I don't know, sometimes I feel that there's so many factors that could make next year, I'm talking about the world economy, but could result in next year being a really good year for globalization, for the world economy. And there's a lot of things that could go wrong. That's why I really appreciate today's guest. He joins us every so often here on Living in Mexico, and I really appreciate you joining us today, Gabriel Casillas. You know him well. He's the chief economist for Latin America at Barclays. Welcome to the show. You wrote a really good piece, op-ed for El Financiero that really caught my attention, kind of trying to highlight the five factors or predictions that you have for the world economy. Welcome to the show. What should we expect, Gabriel?
Thank you very much, Ana Maria. It's always very nice to be in your show. So thanks for inviting me. And let me take a quick look to my crystal ball. Just kidding.
Okay.
So no, yeah,
No, it's at this point, there's so many things that could go right or could go really wrong. So that's why I was fascinated when I read your piece. So let's take out your crystal ball and what do we have?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, and thanks for your very kind comments and generous. So the first point is about whether the world is going to be focused on the U.S. or not. 2025 has been a year totally focused in the U.S. Even we go with investors, and usually they tell us, okay, tell us your view on the U.S. and then the Eurozone and China,
Right.
sometimes Japan. This year was all about the U.S. So what's going to be 2026? Well, I must tell you again, totally focus centric on the
Right.
US. But different, no? Because there are some events that will help or will foster a focus on the US as well, no? The US is now taking again leading the presidency of the G20, so for the first time
That's
since
important.
2009.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but are we assuming that Trump is going to try to use a G20 to impose his agenda? Or which I don't know how well that's gonna go, or is he going to try to make important changes in the way the G20 presents its recommendations? I mean, I'm just trying to understand. So he leads the G20. That G20 could actually be very interesting, or it could be a disaster.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be more interesting. I hope so. But definitely, I think imposing the agenda, of course. I mean, I wouldn't think it otherwise, no. So I think that's going to happen, yes or yes. Now, in terms of the one thing that could happen is maybe it's no longer a G20. Maybe there are some countries, if they don't align to that agenda, they say, okay, we're going to become the
Well, we know
G14.
South Africa has not been invited. I just wonder what, there's concern about the US position in regards to important things like, Ukraine or,
Yeah,
the trade war. I mean,
yeah.
it could be, a lot of countries should just may make the decision that they really can't go.
Yeah, and the walk agenda as well. That's also an
That's
important
right.
thing.
That's
So
a,
yeah, so
that's right.
maybe the G20 could become G15 or G16 or a different number for the
G5.
group. Yeah, that could
Yeah.
happen. But definitely, marking the agenda or using the US agenda, I think that's number one key thing to follow.
Right.
But not only that, in 2026, the US will be, it will be its 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and they really want to celebrate. So that will also, make people, just look at the US. And of course, the World Cup. The inauguration is going to be in Mexico, no, in Mexico City, but then the U.S. Most of the World Cup actually will take place in the U.S. And everybody's going to be focused on the U.S. So if we have doubts that the U.S. will be again the focus of the world, yeah, we should not have any doubts on that. No, then this takes us to point number two, because I don't think it's going to be just U.S. centric and that's it. I think that now President Trump actually is going to look more to domestic issues. No, remember in his agenda it was tariffs either for trade purposes or to achieve non-trade goals.
Right.
And we were going to continue to live the consequences and repercussions of that. But the focus is going to be fiscal. Number two, and number three is going to be as well on deregulation. And there are many things there like reduction of taxes, change in the income brackets, so people with lower income could pay lower taxes. So that's going to be a boost for the economy as well. And deregulation, reducing the requirements for banks, allow them to do consolidation, and some M&A there, delaying Basel III implementation. So those things at the end, create growth, maybe at the expense of supervision and some other stability factors.
But it does create growth, which
Exactly, the
is
short run
his
for sure.
objective. Right.
Exactly. So it's going to be more domestically focused. And of course, you know perfectly that on November 3rd to 2026, we have the midterm elections in the US. So, and there's going to be a full renovation of the lower house and, 1/3 of the Senate. And, we saw the results in New Jersey and Virginia of the governorships. And of course, the mayor of New York. There were anti-Trump. I don't think personally that this is something that it's a sentiment share across America or across the US. However, there's one thing that really is a common factor of concern for everybody, that is affordability. No, the big question is the US becoming too expensive for Americans. No,
Right.
and I think that's something that Trump is going to pay a lot of attention to if he wants Republicans to do well in the midterms. No, so that's number two. No. Yeah, you're gonna see something.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think it's going to be by January, February. I think that is going to be one of the main issues. It may be the priority because he does need to control both houses. And it's not clear that he is going to be able to address the affordability problem in the United States in the short term before the midterm elections, right?
Yeah, of course, this deregulation and fiscal that has already been approved, the one big beautiful bill. I think those are going to help, and they're going to be implemented in January. Yeah, you're right. I think
But
definitely
the
it has to
impact is not necessarily short term.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really hard to bring down prices in general.
Well,
And
they never go down, so I
they're
agree.
never going to go down. So, he's going to really have to figure out a way to convince people that they're better off. And I'm sure that's what Republican candidates are concerned about. Okay, so I interrupted you. What else?
No. You never interrupt. It's a conversation, so it's great. So no, but let me go to point number three. That it's about growth. No, actually, what we're talking about. So we see 5 forces of growth in the U.S. next year. So number one, the one big beautiful bill. Number two, deregulation. Number three, manufacturing cycle. After COVID, nobody wanted to buy things. Everybody wanted experiences, no spending, hotels, restaurants, travel, whatever. Yeah, concerts. So, but at the end, that created a recession in the manufacturing sector, but it has started to come back. No? Last year, industrial production contracted 0.3% in the US. This year, we're expecting actually to grow 1.6%. Next year, we're expecting something around 2.3%. So that, people now need to change their, washing machine, their refrigerator, some cars maybe. So in this context, this manufacturing boost is going to be important because it's more structural rather than, dependent on any policy or any other thing. And we have other two sources of growth, but those are facing very important challenges. One is AI, all the investment in artificial intelligence and the tech combo with crypto and semiconductors.
Right.
And the other one is monetary policy. No, so that takes us to point number 4. No, so what are the challenges of AI and monetary policy? Well, as you know, monetary policy, President Trump would like the Federal Reserve to keep cutting rates, and probably, we're going to see some still, 25 basis point cuts throughout 2026. However, there's been this attack to independence of the Fed with the case of Lisa Cook, the governor of the Fed, that, President Trump wanted to remove her from the governing board. And then the replacement, the potential replacement of Jay Powell as chair of the FOMC. So those are things that are not necessarily going to help to bring rates down, because changing one person, even the chair, doesn't mean everybody else are going to be on board to just lower rates because of that. And they need to see an economy that is slowing down. And on top of that, we have pent-up inflation. Inflation from tariffs that has not been, transferred to consumers because of different reasons, but it's there. It's not like they're not paying tariffs. Yeah, exactly. So, and if you have an economy, because we think this year the economy will grow around 1.9%, and next year 2.1%. And the one big beautiful bill will have an effect of probably of 50 basis points, so 0.5. And then you have AI that will probably have an effect of 0.3%, like 30 basis points. So you have big chunks of things. But let me put the final piece of the puzzle here. Why it's so challenging? Because AI, now people are talking about the impacts, no? Long term, probably is going to be great. And everybody, there are going to be new jobs created and so on and so forth. But in the short run, first entry jobs are going to be lost. People just getting out of university are not going to find easily a job, because those are the jobs that actually AI replaces, particularly in the services sector. So in this context, you're going to have a K-shaped economy. Now, people usually talk about.
I had not heard the K-shape model in a long time. Just remind us what that looks like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, usually in recession, when people talk about recessions and recovery, they say, "Oh, it's going to be a V-shaped recovery,
It's a V-shape,
like
right.
or
like
a U-shape, exactly, a U-shaped recovery,
this, right?
Or a W with when the economy
Goes down, up, right?
exactly,
Okay.
or an L, it goes down and never recovers.
And can never recovers. Okay.
Exactly. So, but K, what's K? Well, it's when we have a recovery, like for example, post-COVID, when people start talking about the K-shaped economy, that you have, people that were able to work from home, etc., doing well, in one of the,
it just goes down. And
exactly,
the ones who
the
are
upper
doing
arm
well go up, right?
Yeah. And the ones that are not able to work from home, the delivers, the Uber deliver people, etc. So those are not doing well. So they are on the lower arm of the K.
Right.
Exactly. So now people aren't talking about a K-shaped recovery, are talking about K-shaped economy, because people that own the assets, particularly the tech combo, are doing great with all these investments and increasing in prices in the stock market, and then people in the street, they're not going to get those benefits. On the contrary, they're going to struggle to find a job. So imagine monetary policy only has one instrument, interest rate, and usually you lower rates to boost the economy, and if you boost investment, jobs are going to be created and everything is going to be great. But now you might lower the rate, and you're going to boost Wall Street, and then the citizen in the street, they're not going to get anything from out of that. So it is a very challenging
thing. Prices are not going down. I mean, prices are just not. I mean, it's kind of like in the worst case scenario, because not only prices are not going down, there is inflation. You know what I mean? And it's just I guess the question is what's going to happen with inflation next year. But continue talking. I mean, there is concern about that.
Of course. And probably this pent-up inflation, just let me give you one example. For example, automakers, they didn't want to transfer the tariffs that they're already paying to consumers, because they have big inventories from 24 and 25 models, but they're going to do it on 26 models. So inflation is going to be there. The other part is that whenever tariffs were announced, there was a front loading of imports to the US. Inventories increased like crazy, and then when tariffs were imposed, zero. There were no ships in the ports, and then again they were postponed. Once again, see the volatility of a lot of imports. So they didn't need to really transfer any tariff to consumers because they were not paying for it. But now they're paying for it. So there's some pent-up inflation that might have inflation around 2.6, 2.8%, around 3% next year. And that's far from the 2% that's the target of the Fed. So imagine an economy growing at 2% with almost 3% inflation. It's going to be very hard for the Fed to lower rates, no? More so with the K-shaped thing.
But Trump's pressuring the Feds to do that, to lower the rates. And how is that going to work out?
Well, as I said, but you have many members of the board, no, 12. So you need to convince more than 6 to really do it. So you have Stephen Myron that has been voting for 50 basis points. You have some dovish members like Michelle Bauman and Chris Waller, but they have not been voting for 50 basis points cuts. And you might have the new chair of the Fed that might be voting for 50, but that will not lead to low rates necessarily, no? So I think the institutional part of the Fed is going to work, and they're going to do whatever they need to do and not really just do whatever the president wants, no? I think that's going to be the case. But let me go to point number 5, no? That it's actually markets. And the two big questions, One is particularly on whether we're seeing a bubble and it's going to burst in the tech combo
Right.
of semiconductors, AI, and crypto assets.
Right.
The other one is whether the dollar is going to be weak or not. No.
Mhm.
So on the tech combo, there are a lot of concerns that there could be a bubble. But as you know, economists we're terrible forecasting bubbles.
Oh, well, and everybody is kind of, you read the analyst and I follow you, I follow other analysts trying to anticipate if there is a bubble, and two, when can we start anticipating that it's going to burst, and three, what would be the tipping point? So I think up right now, everybody agrees that there is a bubble, right? There is a technological bubble. Is there an agreement on that?
I think there's an agreement that there could be a potential bubble. So,
Okay, because then it makes it very hard to predict whether it's going to bust and what would be the tipping point, right? And
right.
everybody looks at Nvidia as kind of that company that everybody has to pay attention to, or am I wrong?
No, you're right. Yeah. I mean, so far, our analysts at Barclays believe that, in terms of AI, in terms of the discounted flows, all the
Right.
revenues that they're going to get in the future,
Mhm.
bring into present value. The same goes with semiconductor companies
Right.
like Nvidia. They're going to do well. So we're still
Mhm.
like in the early part of the rally. But in
Okay.
terms of crypto, there are doubts because the crypto rally has been in the market for a longer period of time. And now there are doubts whether they're going to be coins or currency, or whether some companies that have done a good job offering good payment systems, they're going to become a
Right.
company offering blockchain services. So on
Right.
the crypto side, there are several doubts, and we have seen some
Mhm.
corrections in the market.
Right.
But for the semiconductor part, like Nvidia, and
Mhm.
for AI, no, it seems that at least we're not forecasting a bubble yet, and actually there's more to
And
go in the rally.
if there is a crypto bubble, I'll call it a bubble. What does that mean? I mean, it could be it could have a huge impact. Not well in the US, the world economy, right? Because there's a lot of investment, a lot of expectation on crypto.
Well, we can have a very long conversation on crypto, and
Why don't
maybe
we
I'm
have
not,
that, right?
yeah, and maybe
We'll
I'm
leave
not
that for
the,
next year. We'll
yeah, but
leave
let
that
me
for
tell you just a couple of things that I believe are
Mhm.
important. No, I mean, two things. You have the side of the monetary economist, no,
Right.
and that study, the classical economists, and history about what has happened to currencies that were not issued by governments, that they always end up being issued by governments, throughout
Right.
history.
Right.
And with all this theoretical economy that we live right now, it seems that they're not going to be currencies anymore. But then you have the other side of the spectrum of people saying, no, no, you're not understanding this. Crypto and Bitcoin, it's almost like a religion in some place, but
I
it's
know.
it's that people doesn't believe anymore in
Mhm.
fiat currency, not in gold, but this is the digital gold,
Mhm.
and this is the new way to do transactions. So I mean, honestly,
Right.
they do have some powerful arguments. So
Mhm.
I mean, I think that the rally has already matured a bit, somewhat.
Mhm.
So maybe we're not in an early part of
Well,
the
but you
rally.
know what? Also, Trump has done everything he can to promote crypto so that the United States would be the number one crypto country of the world. I mean, he really has. So if crypto fails, or if there is a bubble, that means, and I may be wrong, that Trump and the US economy failed. So they're going to do everything to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, but there could be this transformation from crypto assets to blockchain companies,
Right.
no? And that's very important because all contracts, everything that has to do with property rights, with blockchain, you solve those issues, and you don't need anything physical anymore, no?
No.
So I think that could be the evolution of those, and they could do well. Like Amazon, started selling books, and
I
there was
know.
a bubble in the dot coms. A lot of companies went bust, but Amazon
Mhm.
survived, and they no longer sell books anymore. They sell everything,
So
no?
everything,
Yeah.
everything.
So I think
Okay.
something like that's going to happen with crypto. That's
Right.
my take. but I'm not a guru on crypto. No, so
Well, and crypto's it's hard to figure out because I'm still trying to grasp how, at what point countries are trying to have some kind of control or impose some kind of regulations on it. And two, it is still not easy to convert crypto into things that you can buy, or that you can buy food, or you can buy your house. I mean, it's still hard. It's possible, but it's not like you're walking around with chain or money in your pocket.
agree.
But I don't know, we should do a show on crypto in Mexico, because I'm fascinated to see, because I don't know if I told you, I saw that there's like a crypto machine in one of the malls here in Mexico City, and I'm like, whoa, that's new to me. I mean, it's like a teller, and I'm like, wow, I had not seen that before.
Yeah, I
But
saw
there
one
wasn't a lot
in
of,
San Salvador. I saw one in San
yeah, no,
Salvador.
well, yeah, well, their economy is based
No
we're
longer.
supposed to, no
No, they
longer.
changed. No, no, they had to change some things because otherwise they wouldn't get the IMF loan that they
There
got.
you go.
So they had to do, like, reduce, and the
Risks, right?
importance of Bitcoin. They can no longer pay taxes with Bitcoin. So there are
That's
some
fascinating.
interesting things happening
My
there.
God.
But
So,
let me go with the dollar real quick. The dollar.
mhm,
Do we think it's going to be weak? Yes, but not weaker. So we think, for example, in the case of the euro, we're forecasting 1.13. We're a little bit above that. So
mhm,
it's a little bit down in the next few years. And for the dollar mex, for example, important for Mexico, of course, we
mhm,
think that next year it could go from 18 to
mhm.
19, even 1950.
Wow.
Just absorbing the volatility of the
Right,
USMCA
right,
negotiation, and
right.
then going back to 18 in 2027.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about 2026 then. Um, what impact is the World Cup going to have on the Mexican, US, and Canada's economy? How is it going to impact? It's going to impact North America.
Well, three parts. Number one, we economists usually take a look at what has happened in other countries that have had the
Right.
World Cup
Yeah.
in terms of what's happening with consumption, GDP, inflation, even fiscal.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have observed is that usually there's a big increase in government spending to prepare the stadiums and to prepare the cities and
A
everything.
lot of money is spent.
Exactly. Then you see, an increase in consumption, that it's important, but it's not so different from different World Cups, even if you don't have your World Cup in your
Mhm.
country. Because at the end, people go out to bars and restaurants. Not everybody can go to the stadiums.
Right.
There's some surge in tourism, of course, but it's not a big deal, because then you have the third quarter going up, and then the fourth quarter pays the consequences. So at the end, the year as a whole, the growth is not so substantially boosted,
Mhm.
no? But then,
Right.
because there was this government spending that increased significantly one year before, then you have the post, the post
Hangover.
World Cup
It's a post,
hangover.
it's put the post, it's the hangover, the post-cup hangover.
Exactly. So, governments have to consolidate, reduce government spending. The economy
Mhm.
actually faces some trouble. So depends on those things, no? So in the case, for example, of this World Cup, Mexico, US, Canada, I have not seen a very significant increase in government spending
Mhm.
directed towards the World Cup. So I think that makes a big difference, because probably the hangover is not.
Mhm.
I mean, we're still gonna have a hangover, but it's not gonna be that bad. It's gonna be
Mhm.
small. In terms of growth, as I said, a boost in growth and tourism probably in Q2 of 2026, but then a
Mhm.
small contraction maybe in Q3,
Right.
and then on inflation, yeah, we might have like 30-40 basis points coming out of that. It depends on the country, and depends on how much the CPI
Mhm.
basket assigns to things like restaurants and food and
Mhm.
beverages, because that's the main thing, and also airfares and hotels. Those
Yeah.
are the main things that are there, no? So I think it's going to be more like an emotional thing. And at the end, the good thing of soccer, of any sports events, they tend to slow down some of the geopolitical conflicts. So maybe I'm being too
Yeah.
optimistic, but I hope that happens.
I hope so. And I think they're trying to get some of these geopolitical crises resolved by the time we get to to the World Cup in 2026. I always enjoy talking to you. Promise me you'll come back and we can, I'd like to talk about your perceptions as to what's going to happen with Mexico's economy next year. Because
Look,
among all of this, we have 2026, we have the elections in the United States midterms, we have the World Cup, the United States celebrates 250 years, which is also in itself an interesting factor in terms of how the Americans going to view themselves. But you also have the renegotiation of the USMCA, and there's mixed messages about how it's going to go forward and whether North America is going to survive not only the World Cup, but Donald Trump and the USMCA negotiations. So you got to come back really soon, Gabriel Casillas.
Thank you very much. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. And yeah, I think things are going to go well, but the developments are going to be interesting. So yeah, let's talk whenever you want. Thank you very much.
It's going to be a roller coaster ride. You can say it. Take
Exactly.
care. We may even find out we have, extraterrestrials among us. Who knows? Take care. That was Gabriel Casillas. He's the chief economist for Latin America for Barclays, joining us once again here in Living in Mexico. Stick around. We're going to go to a break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. We'll be back really soon.
Un gustazo, Ana María. Ahora sí me tengo que ir corriendo, pero qué gustazo.
Pero sí es esa columna sobre el mundial, escríbela, si ves que no la has escrito.
No lo he escrito.
Es buenísimo. Ese